All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Leaders Uncut. It is so great to have you here today. If it's your first time, welcome. On this channel, I host incredible leaders, entrepreneurs, CEO, innovators that are launching something extraordinary with their enterprises and utilizing technology to actually really change the world. And today we have two of those extraordinary innovators that are here with us. They work with the company Bytespace that they created. We have Carl Dillon, who is the CEO, and we have André who is the CTO. Well, Carl and André, welcome. How are you today?
It's a lovely day. We've been building all morning, so it's
Well, building all morning and building all night.
Yeah.
Good morning. Yeah, this is what it takes when you're an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, it's hard to stick to a schedule just because like you would just want to make your customers happy and ship all the features that they're requesting, and yeah, you end up like sleeping at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. some days. Yeah.
There's no off button.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I totally understand that. It takes someone special to be able to do that. So it's obviously who you are. So I can't wait to hear about, first of all, your background, because both of you have fascinating backgrounds that really explain why you're doing what you're doing today. So why don't we start there, and then we can tackle what you are doing with Bytespace. That would be great.
Sure, we're happy to go into that. Do you want to share yours first? Or?
Yeah, sure. So kind of like, so I started like, I think I grew up in Guatemala for most of my life. And during Guatemala, the way I got into technology was actually pretty, I think, unique. It started with an accident that I had like while I was skiing, I think on a trip to the US. And I damaged my C6 and C7 cervicals, and I couldn't walk for a year.
Wow.
And during that time, while I was recovering, I didn't go to school. I didn't I missed like my classes. I had like this huge migraine because of the concussion. But like as I started recovering, like I remember I just like picked up a computer, and to kill the time, I would just like learn how to code. So during that year, I got super interested into, like what goes behind all the technology that it was being used on me for me to recover quickly, like on all these hospitals. I started asking a lot of questions, and I went to get my hands on it. So I got really into software because I got in love with the idea that whatever, no matter how creative you are, you could like just come up with a set of instructions for a computer and make it do what you want to do. And I started my journey there by creating first like neural nets like CNNs and RNNs in the medical sector for diagnosis, specifically for the public healthcare sector in Guatemala, because there's like a huge misdiagnosis like problem there. And yeah, that was like when I was like 14, 15. And from then like I did projects like on the genetic space. I got into PenMNT, and then after a year I dropped out. I'm happy to go more over it, but why I dropped out. But yeah, then I built like stuff in the kind of like started like doing RAG and like ChatGPT, LLM based like applications before ChatGPT even came out, which was dope. I got to meet my first investor, who was Corey from C Fellows, and then I moved to the Bay. And then I did some other projects in the logistics and manufacturing sector, and now I jumped into Bytespace. So yeah, that's kind of like a short version
wow. Wow, you are exactly what I call a bilateral or multilateral geek. That's what you are. It is fascinating. Oh my God, wow. No wonder you're doing what you're doing right now. Well, that's just incredible. And like you say, everybody thinks, oh, AI, ChatGPT just came out a couple of years ago, but I have seen a lot of people actually started working on things like that 10 years ago. It's not unusual. You are one of them, and you're still so young. So it's pretty incredible. Congratulations on that. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that, André.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. When I started, it was like around 2018, and it was like when the first like transformer paper came out. Which like essentially created like the LLMs that we see today.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been like an amazing journey just to see it like all like pan out in
I
the
can, I
research
can,
space.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So I can understand why, Carl, you probably feel very blessed to have someone like him on your team. In addition to your skills, can't wait to hear about your skills now.
Yeah, I always say if I had three Andres, we could take over the world. But I think, he glossed over some points on his background. Like, he was also a famous hip hop dancer at one point, getting millions of views,
Really?
getting put in at like 12 years
Oh,
old.
oh my
He
God! I
ran,
need to see those videos. You need to share that.
Yeah,
they're on
they're on
YouTube.
YouTube. If you search like André, like you'll find most of it.
And
Yeah.
he won some government awards, and he also sold the software that he made in the hospitals when he was coding at 14 years old when he was paraplegic for that year. He sold that software to a bunch of hospitals in Guatemala, so it wasn't like just like a pet project. It actually made him quite a bit of money at the time, and he also won government awards, like one-off government awards that they only give to like one person a year. He also went to the Olympics, or he went to the Olympic qualifying games for volleyball. So after being paraplegic, he started running Ironmans and getting crazy about all this stuff. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy background.
You
yeah.
you
I
know, I
have
mean that you are the example that I want to share with the world, and especially with young people. You need to speak with my daughter. I'm going to connect you with my daughter. She needs to speak with young, with some, I'm serious because nowadays, especially when younger people, and everybody, everyone needs that. But I think younger people need to see examples like that because it's really the pure demonstration of you can do anything you decide to do. You really can. It's a mindset. It's a decision making. It's a certain perspective that somehow I don't know if it's your accident that triggered that, but I think you were born this way. I think you were born to embrace whatever happens to you and turn it into something positive.
Yeah. I give a lot of credits to my parents. Obviously, like growing in Guatemala, I think like for someone to be a great entrepreneur, like sometimes like people are not born into the role, but if you grow in the right set of environments, we use this also like when we're hiring people, we ask them about their childhood and how they grew up. Just because like the more how do you say this? Like
The
the
more
more challenging their
tenuous,
childhood
yeah.
like was, quickly they grew up, and
Yeah,
you see a lot of cases where like if they were in harsh environments when growing up, and they had to grow up quickly, they end up doing pretty amazing stuff like from a very early age, like
yeah,
13, 14, 15.
yeah.
And here in San Francisco, like most of the founders that we talk to every day and who are like super successful at what they do, they usually have this trait,
Yeah.
very very tough childhood
Yeah.
and very yeah, started building since a very young age for
I
13,
agree. I
14,
agree
15.
with you. It's at the stage. I mean, you're forced to, in a way, you're forced to evolve quickly. You're forced to protect yourself and to be creative. And when you develop those traits at an early age, it becomes ingrained in you. And it's. I think it's easier. And I'm not telling you it's easy because nothing is easy when you launch several enterprises. But I think you have the DNA that is set up for a higher chance of success.
Yeah, 100% I agree.
Yeah, that's so great. Oh my God, I'm so glad I met you both. So, how about you, Carl? Because I know that you have done a lot of things as well.
Yeah, my background is similar to Andre's in that there was a lot of hardship. But as a kid, I was
Yeah,
always super curious. I loved building. Like I would, everything from like Bionicles to Legos to castle models to to even building like a hovercraft in eighth grade that won the science fair. It would actually hover off the ground, and like I was testing like the air drag and stuff under it based on like the materials used. So that was very cool. But I would drive my parents crazy because I would always ask the question why, and I would be super curious. So I'd ask why over and over and over again. I'd be drawing on the walls of our house, and they had to repaint that multiple times. I dug up our backyard at one point because I was looking
I
for
love it.
fossils. I was just doing weird things as a kid.
Oh,
But my background was like my household was a bit rough. So I mean, I won't go into the full details of that, but there was like it wasn't always the most structured or conducive background. Like and then in 12th grade or so, like when my parents were going through their divorce, I went through I was flunking out of school. So before that I was getting like top marks. I was in an accelerated program. I came in with the highest math score in my middle school, and they were trying to put me in like 11th grade math or something early on. But I started flunking out of my classes. I didn't do any of my homework, and I got addicted to video games because they were kind of an escape from the reality that I was living in. And at
Yeah.
that time, I started learning. That was the first time that I automated anything. So I started automating video games. I was automating like scripts for MMORPGs like RuneScape and World of Warcraft. These games have like a inbuilt game economy where you collect resources and then you can sell those resources for gold in the game. And
Yeah.
then that gold you can actually sell. I found out ways like on real world markets where I could sell that gold to other people for money. So I was like making money at like 12 years old doing that, which was very cool. And then fast forward a bit. I had two different high schools that I went to for different reasons. Like I felt like the first one wasn't giving me the education that I wanted, so I shifted over. And then, I ended up getting into Berkeley. The district that I went to high schools in Sacramento was the second most diverse school district in the nation. So I was surrounded
Mm.
by all kinds of people from all walks of life, which was super cool.
Yeah.
And luckily enough for me, like I was the only person in my grade to get into Berkeley. I think that was like the best school that anyone got into. No one had heard of the Ivies, so I didn't even apply. I didn't know that was a thing that I could do at the time. But luckily enough, I got into UC Berkeley. I remember my essay for UC Berkeley was titled like "I will never eat a pot brownie again," which is like a marijuana brownie. I had gotten in trouble for that in middle school or high school.
Oh my God.
And so weirdly enough, that was like a good fit for Berkeley. They thought, oh, this guy's weird, so I would like to have him in. Um,
Yeah, I'm sure there
I,
was.
I
I'm sure there were other criteria to that decision. But anyway, yes, go ahead.
yeah, but I came in as pre-med physics, so I thought I was going to be a neurosurgeon. Then I quickly realized that it was going to take 15 years to actually get to the destination that I wanted, and I thought there must be other ways to leave some sort of impact on the world, right? And I think that's when I kind of stumbled into entrepreneurship. I did some accelerator programs in Italy and etc. And then over the course of like the first 3 years of college, I had started a couple companies in a few different spaces. Those companies didn't make a lot of money, but it gave me an idea about how building a business, building a team, all of those things kind of fit together. And then like last year of college, that summer before, I started a consulting company because I just wanted to learn about like a bunch of different industries and have the opportunity to work in different spaces. That company went on to do like six-figure revenue the first year, second year, and we maintained that for a couple of years. But I ended up dropping out of UC Berkeley because it was doing so well, and we had clients in like Korea and Estonia and in France, I think, yeah, France or Turin. And that was very cool. I got to work in like everything. I got to learn a little bit about like metallurgy and like different metal alloys. I also got to learn how social media startups will scale up. So and then I got my first foray into design at that time, which was really cool. But then I realized after about 2.5 years that the consulting model wasn't going to work for me long term because it wasn't scalable. Like the only way to scale up that company was I would have to hire out tons and tons of employees in order to get more clients. And I was like, I don't want to be managing like, thousands of employees or something eventually. I'd rather scale up in a more lean way. And that's when I started this organization called Startup Grind in Berkeley, which was kind of an events organization. We hosted like fireside chats, but we did our first event with the mayor of Berkeley, actually with a proclamation from the city, which was super cool. It was like, 100 plus people. And I met the CEO of 6x7 Networks at the time. Like it was a brand new telecom carrier at that event. And she was like, hey, you want to come check out my data center? And I was like, I've never seen a data center. I don't know anything about infrastructure, but sure, like I'd love to come see. I walked in and it was like it was a shell of like an environment. There was nothing, there was a few servers in the basement. I could see the telecom lines being pulled in from the street, from like the train tracks. There was like maybe 4 different carriers that was passing in front of that building. So we realized it was like a pretty good location. And then she was like, I don't have any other people on the team, but would you want to help me with sales? So I was like, I haven't done that much in sales, but I'll give it a shot. And I gave it a shot specifically because she said she wanted to take on AT&T, and I thought that problem was like a massive problem to tackle. I was like, how is a 2-person organization going to take on a massive carrier? But we started doing pretty well. I think after like 6 months, I had picked up on the technology. I was working in server rooms all over the city. I had access. I had keys to like the Palace of Fine Arts and a lot of the big buildings in the city where I had rooftop access. We were doing point-to-point shots. We were like doing dark fiber stuff in the ground, literally tearing up the streets of SF and Denver and LA to lay fiber, which was super cool. And over those 3 years, I scaled, and I think we had closed like 23.2 million in contracts. I closed partnerships with some of the biggest carriers in the world, like where we could access their dark fiber plant. And we were just doing it in a very unique way, and we were being very scrappy. So that was cool. I actually realized that I wanted to work in like NGOs and like a couple other areas.
Well, basically like the company ended up like just not working out, like but it's for reasons that we rather not speak
Okay.
because it's private reasons for
That's
like
okay.
the
Is your marketing making an impact? Are you reaching the right audience? Is your messaging truly connecting? Are you maximizing your return on investment? At Slice Marketing, we use AI-powered insights to fine-tune your targeting, optimize your messaging, design high-converting websites, and craft content that inspires, entertains, and educates, or to amplify your brand's impact. Sometimes a small adjustment can create big results. Let's chat, no strings attached. Email us at catherine.oaks@slicemarketing.com or visit our website. You don't need to give us all the secrets. That's fine.
Yeah, I would just say the one thing I'll say on like the reason why I switched over is that in the beginning, like we were delivering everything that I was selling, like we deliver like 95% of the circuits and like the services to people. But towards the end, it was like 30% of what I was selling. And I just didn't feel like I could ethically keep selling if the services weren't delivered. So then I was like, okay, I jumped into NGOs for a bit because I was kind of burnt out with the startup scene, worked in like deforestation for maybe like 6 months, and then I like was an advisor for that company for a bit, and then I happened to get an opportunity to work in SaaS. Like a friend of mine said, like, hey, like there's a brand new startup that's like a Series A at the time, and they need help with sales and biz dev. So I came in and I said, okay, like I'm happy to do that. Brought in some SDRs, some AE, like account executives, and then kind of helped scale up that team. And I did that for a year. I learned about third-party risk management and vendor orchestration software. So our clients were like the big, like Walmarts and Ubers and like those kinds of guys that are managing thousands and thousands of vendors. So I learned about like the nitty-gritty details about like how actually you manage a vendor, and how you onboard them, how you do all the risk assessments, like all of those details. And then at the end of that, I realized that, there wasn't going to be much upward mobility for me there because there was people that had worked in the industry for 30 years and they were like VPs, executives, and I came in as like a VP of biz dev, but I wasn't going to be able to I just started doing the same thing day in and day out. And I'm a very like a person that likes to do new things. So then I went back to school after that, and I thought, okay, like I'll spend a year, like the last 6 classes that I had left at Berkeley, I'll finish that up, give myself some time to think. And then as I was coming out of that period of my life, I just happened to meet André. Because I went on a date with his roommate at the time. She was like visiting for like a month or two from Guatemala, and so we went on a couple of Bumble dates. And she was like, "Hey, you have like what you've done and what you've worked on is super cool. I think you'll really like André." So we met at like a founder barbecue in Palo Alto, and we realized that we both had kind of fucked up childhoods in some ways, and like we really our minds worked in a very similar way. We were both like very driven. We worked 24 hours a day, or as many hours as we could squeeze into the day.
And then I stole him from the girl. And
You stole him from the girl. Well, all right. It worked out though. That's great. Wow. I mean, that's, like I said, I just got an infusion of jet fuel. I think that's the impression I have. Like, oh my God, wow. It's just unbelievable. I love your stories. I love your background. Kudos to both of you. You are just unbelievable. This is such an example for so many people. First of all, thank you for that. And thank you for having had the resilience and the drive to keep pushing and innovating, and for doing what you're doing right now, because you are changing the world. So having done that, we know who you are now. So let's talk about Bytespace, because you're really giving options to turn any website into APIs in a matter of minutes or seconds. And you also help for lead generation, data scraping, agents, AI agents. So why don't you talk about this and explain to us what it is that you do most right now with your clients, and the type of services that are really game changer at this point, and why you're different?
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of give you a laydown of the space and why we kind of went the direction that we went. I think the majority of automation tools out there, if you're familiar.
No, but I think we should start first. Like, what is Bytespace for the beginning? You can go into that, and then
Bytespace allows you to automate the web, right? So any website that you want to automate, any action that you can take as a human being, we can create automations and web agents on top of that. So you can, any repetitive tasks that you have, that Bytespace can create automations around that.
Right.
It's kind of like a mix of like Zapier and like AI agents, like pure AI agents that can go and run around the web however they want. And Zapier is like another automation tool, but it's API based.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the way that I would describe the space and why we went to where we were going is that like most of the tools out there, like Zapier, like Make, like N8N, that automation engineers are using today, they're quite limited because they only cover API-based websites, which is less than 1% of the web. And that means that 99% of websites have no API, so they have no way to interact with their backend or their front end until today. And and I think that only covers about 10 to 15% of use cases. So that's why we built Bytespace, because we realized there was a huge untapped market of just like things that people wanted to automate. We had conversations with maybe 400 plus like automation engineers that have been building on Make and Zapier for the last like 2 to even 10 years, like literally since the beginning of these platforms' existence. And they've been head over heels about the platform. And then the way that it works is it's kind of like if you think about APIs like highways, they get you maybe 90% of the way to your destination. But they're like, highways are expensive. They can be fast, but they're expensive. They're hard to maintain. And like when you get off the highway, you're at the exit, right? But if you want to go to a business or you want to go to like your house or something, if you had to walk the rest of the way, that's what like navigating the internet today feels like. It's like you can get part of it there. It's
you
like
move this data manually from the API to your other service and all this stuff. So.
and which is critical, because I think most people out there are a little intimidated as soon as they hear AI, API, agents. It triggers the worry gene is coming out right away. And they think it's very complex to incorporate just about anything like that within the system. So that's something that you're addressing, obviously, especially that you can cover any type of environment, correct?
Yeah, we can cover any type of environment, and like we think about ourselves as kind of like the roads. So it's like the exit, we're like the inner city roads that connect everything. So we can connect API-based tools, like if you have workflows on Make, Zapier, N8N, but then you also have like actions that you need to take on the web that don't work within the workflows. You can call a Bytespace agent within those things to extend the functionality.
And to connect the services.
Yeah. Sure. And then the other end of this side is like, there's the API-based tools, which are like over here. And on the right side, you have the pure computer use agents. Like if you've seen Operator or Cloud Computer Use or any of these agents that actually navigate the web, like the way that they're doing it is through like pure visual analysis. And there's a couple problems with that. One, it's insanely expensive. Like it costs you maybe up to like $1 every 5 minutes. And ours ends up costing you like $1 for like an hour worth of continuous use, right? So we cost quite a bit. But then 12 times. And then the other thing that is like very striking is that like with pure computer use agents, if you use them, one, it takes a long time to get like the workflow that you want. And then if you run it a second time, you end up getting a different result. Like the agents don't work exactly the same way every time. And that's not really a reliable way to automate for enterprise or for business, right? You need like reliability, determinism in your automations. So we sit kind of in the middle, and then we can also integrate like API-based tools. We can integrate specialized agents. We can integrate your own web app or platform functionality, and we can also integrate computer use agents, which are like general web agents. But we do it in a smart way to keep our costs like very, very down compared to
that's important. So what you just said, I'm sure a lot of people understand it. But for a lot of people, it sounds like Chinese, Chinese speaking people, but it does. And right away, they don't get it. And you know how it is, especially the older generation, when they don't get something, they put it aside and they say, we'll track at it later. The problem is nowadays, you don't have time to wait. You just don't. You really have, if you want to stay relevant and competitive, you absolutely have to integrate those new technologies. So what do you say to people like that who tell you, hey, I don't get it now, I don't need it, I'll look at it in 6 months from now? What do you say to those people?
So obviously, like people tend to like the general population tends to like start adopting these technologies, like from for example AI, like maybe 2-3 years like after like the innovation has happened. And if you go to most of the world, what most people will know about is what ChatGPT is, right? If you ask them what Claude is, they don't know. Computer use, they don't know. But basically, like, it is really important, like if you're a business owner to basically just take at least like 30 minutes to an hour, like maybe a week, or if you can do it per day, that's like a great practice. But you should put every single employee to just like try out these tools, and start figuring out, because the risk if you don't do it is that a lot of businesses, you've seen that they've grown to maybe, like $1 billion valuation, and they're teams of 10. This is the new world. Like you can increase the output 10 times, 20 times,
100 times,
100 times if you want, and run like billion-dollar companies with just 10 to 15 people. And these are the new companies that have popped out like in the last 2 years, compared to the legacy companies that run on like thousands and thousands of people. So what does this mean? Like, of course, like, for example, in terms of Bytespace, you could imagine it in a very simple way that if you have, like a human just like doing like sales outreach every single day, and it's like super repetitive process, you wouldn't have that person like waste their like mental capacity on such a repetitive process.
Yeah.
You would put it and make a robot, like an AI, just do that process over and over and over, and that person then becomes like actually an orchestrator of that like AI that is doing the work for them. And where you can get the most out of your employees is that if every single employee in your company starts adopting and directing or orchestrating all these different AIs, then they can 10x, 20x, 100x their output. So that's basically the game that you need to play right now. And if you don't do it, it's a bit scary, because you will get left behind in the sense that your competitors will start happening more, reaching more customers, and moving at like 20 times the speed that you're doing. So it is really important right now, because we're in this transition phase where all this technology is getting adopted, is actually getting to a production level that starts delivering better results. It does not hallucinate as much as before, can integrate with more data and more platforms. So all of this innovations essentially build up until, and if you're early and you start using these tools, you will benefit greatly from them.
And I'm glad you addressed that, because I speak to CEOs every day, and every day I'm seeing very often the same type of reaction. So what I'd like to understand is, what is the process here? Because I would imagine you have to customize everything depending on the company that you're speaking with. How does that work? How long does it take to have something that is actually working, productive?
I think it depends. So like it really depends on the complexity of your workflow. If you're doing something as simple as like, like one of our customers was doing, like, they were logging work hours at the end of the day. They would log into their work portal, which had no API, and then they would take those take like the amount of hours the computer was used and the amount of hours like and like what they did on their computer, and then they would take that input and put it into like a form. And that took them like maybe 15 minutes a day. But building this took them like, 15 minutes itself. And then after that, they were saving those 15 minutes, those every day forever. And then it's like every one of these small little processes add up.
Yeah.
So you have that. And then you also have much more complex flows. Like maybe you're going through and building some sort of thing that loops through a bunch of listings and has all these conditional data of like, if the listing has, a certain amount of views or a certain amount of likes or whatever. Like when you're building like things that are a bit more complicated, then maybe it will take you like 30 minutes to like an hour or something to build, but it's fairly fast once you understand the tool. And the tool works similar to how you navigate.
And you don't need to have to be a systems engineer or programmer in order to be able to do that, right?
So this is the other thing that is like very surprising about the AI industry. I think like the most people who are able to, let me rephrase this. So basically you get asked the question a lot, should you still learn how to code, right? And I'll get to the point with this. Yeah. So basically my answer is yes, because right now the people who get the most out of these AI tools are developers. Why? Because they understand how like these LLMs work, how the statistical models work, and also essentially, like how should you design the AI agent? And all the work that in San Francisco that is being done is basically how can we make it simpler for the SMB to adopt this technology, because it's fairly complicated, like to grasp the logic of an LLM. It's not very intuitive. It's like, how do you know you're passing the right context window? Like no one will know, like something like that. So basically that is one challenge right now. Like the best people who are fit to adopt this technology is like someone that has some technical expertise. In the case of Bytespace, the people who can squeeze the most value out of them is like automation engineers who have been automating with Make, Zapier, and all these tools, who have this like automation logic, like at the beginning. But every day, and the way SMBs that are not technical, the way they adopt this is that all these automation engineers build into a platform, deploy it into a marketplace, and then the businesses can just like browse the marketplace and say, I want this AI agent, I just want to fire up. They fill out a form, and then they execute it. So that's how we're breaking the gap between technical like understanding and the use of these tools. But yeah, back to the question, like should you learn how to code? It will help you, like if you have a technical mindset, to make and squeeze the most out of like this AI tools.
Yeah, and most companies have someone technical somehow, right? That would be more prone to being able to taking advantage of something like that pretty quick. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So the bottom line is you can create just about anything, right? You automate the web, you can create any type of AI agent and integrate that within systems. Are there any limitations?
Yeah, so in terms of limitations, like in this, like the web agent industry is so new. There's like a couple problems that we need to address, or the industry is trying to address. So basically, a web agent, again, is like a bot navigating the web and doing work for you.
Yeah.
But for the last 10 years, the entire web has been designed to block these bots, right?
Yeah.
So how do you create a system that mimics exactly like a human and bypasses all this like algorithms that are checking if your system is automated, right? So that is like one of the first challenges. We do a great job. Like the only limit that we hit is like the rate limits on for example websites. So one of our customers like was automating Instagram, and they were like, oh yeah, there's like a limit to how many likes or comments you can do, which is like 90, I believe, per hour. So they are hitting this rate limits, but they're not getting blocked by our system, which is like acting on their on their browser. Then that is problem number one. Problem number two is basically the infrastructure. So right now we're very good at running these agents locally, like on your laptop. But then the challenge comes when you need to spin up a virtual machine. Let's say like your browser hosted on the cloud, like on a different machine, and then you send your agent to do work there. That is pretty challenging. Like the infrastructure side, most like you'll start getting captchas, you'll start getting blockages. It'll detect that you signed in from another place when you usually sign in to your Twitter accounts here and there. Managing authentication is also something that the industry is still figuring out. So I'd say like, those are like probably I think infrastructure is probably one of the one big bottleneck. But if once this is solved, which I believe like it'll be within 1 to 2 years of the industry still innovating on this, then like trust me, every single business will use this web agents, and it will unlock about like $4 trillion in the economy.
Oh yeah,
like,
I mean they will have to. They won't have a choice. Like I said, if they want to stay alive and relevant and competitive, they won't have a choice. And the sooner you start educating yourself on what is available and understanding how everything works, I mean, the better and the faster you'll be able to differentiate yourself even more. And I always say the people who do it first, they will gain huge competitive advantages. I mean, it's inevitable.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's just about like setting up the right team, setting up the right base, so that when the industry is ready, everything is already set. Then you're not going and starting to build things from scratch then and spending 6 months to launch.
And I think that is the hardest thing to do. I think Car is doing that brilliantly. when it comes to you know, we're in a very highly competitive space. It moves at like a day pace. Like
Yeah.
every single day there's a new thing. You
Yeah.
need to be at like, you need to set up for speed. If you're not being fast enough,
Yeah.
you'll just like die on the ground. So Car is like very good at spotting like this talent that is like super unique and like world class, like experts at what they do, which is great because like I can just like be here coding and he's hiring all day. So he wants to lay down like all this like key team members. So
That's
yeah,
that's
Uh,
that's that's important. That's very important. Yeah. All right.
yeah, I
Sounds
mean, I
good.
like.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Carl.
I was just saying, I like finding weird people.
Finding weird people,
we're
but you know what? I like weird people because typically they're the most innovative anyway. They don't they don't fit in a mold, and that's what you want. I love that. That's the way to go about this. So, I have a couple more questions. Certain industries, including banking, are facing huge cybersecurity requirements. They have to be, you know, they are obligated to have that within their systems. Is there anything that they should be worried about when they implement this type of tools?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I wouldn't implement anything that's like I wouldn't implement anything where you're scraping like sensitive information, or you're inputting really sensitive information into the tool. I think over the next, 6 months, years, like there's ways to make sure that the data is protected, and we're very keen on that. But we're very like upfront, we tell all of our people now, like, don't go automate your bank accounts or any of these things. But in the future, there will be, I think, agent wallets and things where you'll be able to have like a separate wallet for an agent, and then you'll be able to automate like transactions and purchasing of different things or trades and all of that. But that is right now what's being figured out by us and by also some other players.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
in terms of security, also like the industry is demanding a lot. Like for example, SOC 2 compliance, HIPAA compliance. So those things are important. It's definitely within our roadmap. We're still in the beta phase. Like we're still like trying to figure out like what's the best way to deliver this product so that people can build quicker. And then on the other side, how we manage like a lot of these tools, like if you're using Bytespace or any other AI tool, like I would say that you just be aware of like, oh, do they have a privacy policy in terms of use, and that you actually read them, because a lot of these sites like will tell you like a lot of things that might not be true. And usually like if you see certificates of like compliance, that is a good sign. Also, like on our end, we are being like audited by like Google Chrome Store. We're basically just like make sure that we're not, like getting any sensitive data from you.
Of
And if
course.
we do, like, for
Yeah.
example, your email, then we say it in our privacy policy. So those are the things to mitigate like this type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of banks, I think you would need 100% SOC
Yeah.
2 compliance and all
Yeah,
this
that's
stuff.
going to be important, especially with with digital currencies and blockchain. I mean, all of this is coming into the picture too. You're going to have to address that so that people feel safe and comfortable, because these are all areas that are still very new and that create a lot of anxiety and fear. So that would be important to address that. And then I have another question for you, because of these new tech that are coming up every day, and because one of them is a gigantic one that's coming our way very fast, and it's a quantum computing. I mean, are you thinking about this? It's going to speed things up even more. So how is that going to work? Now you can make things happen maybe in a couple of hours, and soon with quantum computers, it will be done in a matter of half a second, probably.
Yeah, I mean, quantum is I think it's a bit far from like happening. There's like several research in terms of like photonic chips, which like mimic quantum like computation, but on like a light level and on a room temperature level. In terms of quantum computers, it's really hard to maintain, like the qubit states, because any disturbance on the 3 Kelvin, like basically you need to like cool down all these like facilities to 3 Kelvin, which is like near Bose-Einstein's condensate, which is basically like where the particle is just like almost still. But I like a bunch of this research lab are like cannot like bring anything to production yet. So I think we're still pretty far off from like quantum computing like going into into the market and being adopted by businesses. Maybe some intelligence facilities will use it or something like that. But I wouldn't worry like about quantum computing yet. Maybe like 5 to 10 years in.
I know,
That would be.
and I hope you're right, but I can tell you that I was on the phone with IBM a few weeks ago, and they are set to go. They are ready to go. And entanglement, superposition, they are here ready to be implemented within organizations, not just the government. We are now starting
Yeah.
to speak with universities to make sure everything can be implemented properly and that everything can be scalable and adaptable from a financial standpoint, because it's now very expensive and prohibitive for most organizations out there. But they have data centers that are implemented, ready to go, all at the right temperature, and it's just a matter of pressing the right button at this point.
That's interesting. Again, we're not experts in quantum computing, so like, thanks for sharing that. I will definitely check it out, and
Yeah,
then maybe.
if I were you, I would check it out. I was helping a client for the past 2 months, and I've discovered the world of quantum computing, and it blows my mind because it's really also integrate with our own consciousness, the human consciousness. Everything is linked together, and it's entanglement. When you really learn everything about entanglement, you really understand the capacity that everything will be able to deliver at levels unknown to the humankind up to now. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting.
Yeah. All right, great. Sounds good. So, wow, I could speak about this for you with you for hours. So, if someone is interested in getting hold of you, who should they email? How does that work? What's the process?
You can email me. You can email me, or you can go through the contact page on Bytespace.ai. But my email right now is car@bytespace.ai.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to reach out, they're welcome to reach out there,
Okay.
and we're happy to chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's really important because, and sorry to interrupt you, I'll get back to you, but you have a free trial too, but that's important because a lot of people, they don't know. So they can try that for a while and see that it works for you, right, Andre? Is that how it
Yeah.
works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Currently, we have free trial. We give you free credits. You
Okay.
can test it out. We currently are in closed beta. We're offloading people from our wait list. It's like a very big wait list, but if you reach out to Car and say, "Here's my use case. I want to jump into the platform and test it out," then we'll let you in.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting use case. I think
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be one of them that's going to do that with you because I want to know. It's fascinating to me. So I'll be coming to you for that right after we're done because I really believe in what you're doing. It just makes complete sense. And I'm talking to clients and corporations on a daily basis, and I have to be educated on all of that because they're looking for advice. And when you get the right advice and you feel confident that it can be implemented properly with scalability, which is critical, obviously, that needs to be scalable. It's a huge advantage for me as well.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what you and other people build. Like we're finding that a lot of our current users are building things that we hadn't even imagined were like as like use cases. So I'm very curious.
But I think the most value out of like use cases is like, for example, we as developers or like we're building this company, we have no idea how like what an accountant's workflows look like, right? So I think the power comes when like we give the power to automate the web to these people who are like who know their workflows and their shortcuts to do their work fast or like very uniquely on the web. And we've been surprised a lot by like all these creative solutions.
I can imagine. Yeah, well, you're two powerhouses. I'm so excited to see what you're going to do with Bytespace. I'm sure we will hear from you a lot in the next few years, and we'll see you at the New York Stock Exchange celebrating a public offering soon. I wouldn't be surprised. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I really so appreciate both of you. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
And thank you for having us. It's been lovely chatting. I know even our chat before this call was great. It was just nice getting to know you, and I love what you're doing with Slice XR and putting it out there, meeting tons of different leaders, and like learning a little bit about all these different industries. Like it must be very cool for you to have that opportunity to just like jump into so many different businesses.
And this is what I love. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always been a visionary. I always do things before everybody else, and everybody's telling me, "You're crazy. It will never happen." And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And so it is actually happening, right? So I've always been fascinated by that, and speaking with and understanding what people like you are doing. It's critical. So I really appreciate your time. It was very beneficial. Thank you so much. And everyone else, thank you so much for watching. Please share this video with your network. I share it with mine, but it takes a whole town to create something big, and we need to help each other out here. And what André and Carl are doing right now, it's critical because it's really automating the web, making things work for you. Yeah, everybody's talking about AI agents. I speak with companies that have all software created to create and manage those AI agents, but what they are doing is really a notch, a step ahead of all of that, and it's really important for you to understand it. The good thing is you can try it out, no cost, and then it's very inexpensive. It's about $30 a month, I think, right, to be able to use the platform. So there's really not much to lose here, but everything to gain. And if you want to stay competitive, you have no choice. You have to get hold of those new technologies and start using them so that you get knowledgeable. So again, thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel. I need you to do that so that I can keep doing what I'm doing. And we will see you next time.
Bye.